Hi, I wanted to talk a little bit today about the challenges of being the child of somebody with a cluster B personality disorder. And this has come up in with various clients in recent times. So just to explain, cluster B personality disorders include those disorders such as borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. Now, a very common thread for children of a parent with one of these disorders is an overwhelming sense of a lack of purpose in life, and often going on for many decades. And there is a logic to this, because with a personality disorders of this type, and of course we're talking about a spectrum here, so there can be more serious and less serious, and larger impacts, smaller impacts. But there is a logic to that sense of purposelessness, and it starts with the fact that those suffering these conditions can find it hard to differentiate the individuality of their child. So they often will see that child as an extension of their own ego, to put it simply. So the child will be expected to reflect the desires of the parent and will not be encouraged to develop their own agency, their own individuality, and pursue their own strengths. Now, naturally, when children are growing up, they're constantly looking to parents for that feedback, even from even when you're a baby. You're looking at the face of your parents, looking for feedback. Is this safe? Is this dangerous? We can see it in various psychological experiments, such as the imaginary drop experiment, where these babies who are perfectly safe, but they have a visual appearance of a drop in front of them. But actually they're on a solid piece of perspex. And they will continue to look to the parent. And if the parent looks worried, they'll pull back worried from the apparent drop. If they look happy and comfortable, the baby will carry on and crawl over this perspex and ignore the possible drop. So it's illustrative of that constant feedback loop that the child has with a parent. Okay, so as you develop, this becomes obviously more and more sophisticated, whether you're doing homework, sport, pursuing your studies, pursuing competencies as you grow up. You're still looking on some level at your parents. Is this right? Is this productive? Is this the right thing to do? Am I in danger doing this? And the parent who's suffering one of these cluster B disorders will be viewing the child as needing to represent their ego in a sufficiently good light. So they might have very strong ideas about what profession they should be pursuing, what subjects they pursue at school or at university, or jobs they take. And hence, that child is never getting their own interests, skills, desires, passions acknowledged. There's no positive feedback loop on that front. So as you progress from baby through all the different stages of development, that positive feedback in your own interests is always stunted. And so it's up to that child to keep that fire alight within themselves, which is no easy task. And if you have a whole childhood of that, and then even into adulthood, you might even moved out of the home and you're essentially living independently, but there can still be those phone calls, Zoom calls, whatever it is, where you're still looking for that sense of approval from the parent about what you're doing. You know, have I chosen the right partner? Am I marrying the right person? Am I buying the right apartment? Whatever it is. And you're still tied into it. And in fact, you can be tied into that loop, that unhealthy loop, for far longer as the child of a personality disordered person, because there's no coherence to it. What you're being fed back does not align necessarily with what you feel. So you're kept in a constant state of cognitive dissonance. And so you can't make sense of the world. On some fundamental level, you are constantly experiencing chaotic feedback. Your signals are noisy, and you can't make sense of your desires and what the world is telling you. You can't make sense of how your boss behaves towards you. Everything is incoherent and lacks focus. So when we're working through these issues, we have to learn to acknowledge, first of all, that belief within ourselves that we still need that positive feedback from a dysfunctional parent, because actually it's not helpful. It can be destructive. Hence why we have a big sort of subculture of going no contact. And, you know, maybe for some people that's a positive thing for them to do and necessary in order to break that cycle. But on the whole, I think, you know, life deals us these cards for a reason, and it's good to learn how to cope with it, how to manage the parent who has these conditions. But, you know, every situation is unique and we would deal with it in that way. But what's important is that we stop that need for that feedback loop, because it's not serving you. It's not helping you progress. In fact, it's keeping you back. And at the same time, we have to do a lot of self-reflection on who am I? What are my values? What are the things that are really important to me? And that's a huge piece of work to do, actually. And we have to then disentangle our own personal story. And often that involves writing it down, you know. You don't necessarily have to write a whole book, but we have quite sort of totemic experiences that will come to mind that represent certain episodes of our lives. And to actually get those down, to start writing about them, to get them in black and white, gives us that sense of agency. And that's what we need. We need to start developing that sense of agency, because the child of the cluster B disordered parent will often feel they have no agency, that life happens to them, that they're victims of fate, God, the universe, society, whatever it is. But it's external. And we're very inclined to adopt some kind of victim mentality at this point, which is absolutely toxic and the antithesis of personal development. So we need to reject victimhood and start pursuing agency and personal growth with an absolute passion, like it's the most important thing in your life. Taking control of your own narrative, exploring your own desires and wishes. Now, it's also another trap is to think that there is some Damascene moment to be had where you'll see the light and your purpose all becomes clear. That's not generally how it works. We have to build it little by little, and we have to move towards it little by little. And we create useful goals to head towards, and then we build the habits that can take us towards them. And slowly we start creating order out of the chaos that we've experienced in our lives. Now, of course, the parent may not want you to do this and may attempt to undermine your efforts, and depending on the severity of that, you may need to pull away to some degree or completely, because it's so important that we develop our own agency, our own power in the world. So this is a really interesting and big topic, and it's something I've worked with clients, and something I've had some experience of myself, and I think it's useful for us to understand the principles behind it. The need for the sense of agency, the need to understand ourselves, the need to undo those hidden, unconscious core beliefs that probably reside within us about the need for positive feedback from our parents, and cut those ties, those emotional ties. Start to understand the parent and their limitations, because, it's always important to take a compassionate view of people who are suffering these conditions. Blame is not a useful therapeutic tool. Compassion is. We have to, by understanding their limitations and learning to manage them, we enable ourselves, we give ourselves strength, we give ourselves resilience, we give ourselves wisdom. But often that requires a lot of work to unpick what we've experienced and take control of it, become the captain of our own ship. Okay. Thanks very much.